Jessie Jennings, and there we go. And I'm a content creator here at Plaid. And today we're gonna be talking about one of my very favorite products, our FolkArt glass etching cream. So if you guys don't know, this is a cream that you can apply to glass and you get beautiful etched pieces. You can personalize them. It's great for gift giving. I'll get into all the details in the class, but I'm super excited to show you how this product works because it's probably one of my favorite ones that we make outside of our paint, of course. I just want to remind you too, we have Emily Schmidt here. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to pop them in the chat and she'll answer them herself or she'll relay them to me live so I can help you guys work on your projects at home. Okay, so I just want to let you know some of the supplies I'll be using today. You guys, of course, saw the picture of the project we'll be making today. So we're going to be doing some wine glasses. You can use any wine glasses you have. So you can see here, I have lots of examples just to show you guys. You can kind of get your imagination wheels turning. We have some jars here that are great for gifts that we kind of etched the bottom of. We've got champagne glasses you can etch. I know it's kind of hard to see. But today I'm going to show you just some really fun techniques you can do with all you need is just your wine glasses and some tape. You don't need fancy stencils or an electronic cutting machine or anything like that. While those things are great, I do want to show you some of the fun things you can do with just simple stuff you probably already have at home. So that being said, of course, you'll need some wine glasses. So these are some blank wine glasses. Michael's has great ones. I think they're under the brand Libbey. So you can grab these at Michael's. Of course, you'll need your FolkArt glass etching cream. So this little bottle right here, and you're going to be surprised how far this goes. I know it's tiny, but it goes a long way. And also, I'll let you know as we're kind of crafting, but you can reuse the etching cream too, which is really cool. So you'll need this, of course. I have some plain masking tape here. I think I cited on the supply list the frog masking tape because that's what Michael's has, but any masking tape is great. Washi tape can work too, but it needs to be really adhesive. So I prefer to just kind of be safe and go with masking tape. Grab a sip of water. I also said on the supply listing, you'll need a craft knife. So I have an X-Acto knife here, and we'll be using this to cut our tape so we can get thinner and thicker pieces of tape just using our one roll. But if you have thinner or thicker pieces of masking tape at home, feel free to use those instead. I'm trying to think what else I have. I'm going to be cleaning my glasses with rubbing alcohol. So that's not on the supply list because you can use soap and water at home if you're by a sink. I've got some parchment paper just to protect my surface while I'm applying the etching cream. So a paper plate will work too, tin foil, whatever you have at home, you can just put on your table to just protect it from getting onto your actual surface. And then I just want to tell everybody too, I will be wearing gloves today because you don't want to get etching cream on your hand. It is not non-toxic, so it's okay to breathe. It doesn't have any fumes. You don't have to worry about wearing a respirator or a mask or anything like that. Like if you were using resin or some products like that, but you don't want to get on your hands. So, you know, if you've got like the rubber gloves you use for cleaning your sink or just ones you use for crafting, things like that, to keep your hands clean, any kinds will be fine as long as it just protects your hands from the etching cream. I think that is all I have to show you guys for supplies today. So do you have any questions about supplies, Emily?
No, everybody's just telling us where they're from. We've got Texas, Maryland, we've got North Carolina, California. We even got somebody from Germany. So quite a great group today for the Michael's class.
That's awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you guys decided to join us. Okay, so cool. Let's go ahead and get started. So like I mentioned, the first thing I'm going to do is clean my glasses. So whenever I'm crafting with glass, whether I'm etching it or I'm painting it or I'm doing, you know, Mod Podging it, whatever it may be, I want to clean it. So I like to use isopropyl alcohol, so just rubbing alcohol. But of course, you can just clean it in your sink with soap and water too. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spray a little bit of this onto my glass. And the reason we're doing this is because whenever you craft on your glass, you want to make sure there's no dust or debris or oils from your hands on the glass, especially when you're painting or Mod Podging. You want to make sure you have just the bare glass with nothing that's going to get between the glass and whatever you're applying to it, because that's just going to keep it from adhering the way you want to. But the same goes for the etching cream. If there's anything on top of your glass, like dust or something, it might prevent the etching cream from etching in that area. So we want to have a nice clean etch. So we're going to make sure we clean our glasses with isopropyl alcohol or soap and water. I'm going to go ahead and do both while I'm doing it. We'll be doing two glasses today. I'll show you two patterns that I did that are from the event listing photo.
So we do have two questions, Jessie. So the first one is, can you use colored glass for etching?
Yes, you can actually. That's a really fun technique. You can use colored glass. And actually a little known fact, there's a spider in my glass from our props room. A little known fact is that you can actually use ceramic too. So on lighter ceramic, you of course won't see it, but we've etched like dark ceramic plates, like a black plate or a navy plate. It actually works on that too. So you can kind of see it in the light. It's a little bit more subtle, but it's really fun. But yes, you can absolutely etch colored glass. You get a beautiful, beautiful frosted texture. So yeah, absolutely. I would love to see it too. Guys, whenever we are crafting here, if you decide to follow along or you post your own creations using our product, make sure you post it in hashtag plaid crafts and hashtag make with Michaels, because that's how we get to see all the cool stuff you're doing at home.
All righty. And then our second question is, can you tint the etching formula and then apply it to your glass?
That's a great question. So what this etching cream is, it's not something that's going to stay on our glass. Like some etching creams, it's like a faux etching where it's almost a paint and you put it on your glass, and those can definitely be tinted. But this one is actually going to change the surface of our glass. There's a chemical reaction where it's going to eat away at the surface of our glass. And when we remove it, it is nothing but glass anymore. It just has made some of the area rougher, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel rough. That probably isn't a good word, but it etches the glass. So the glass has changed completely. There's no more paint on this. I can scratch my fingernail on it. It's not going to come off. It changes the glass itself. So tinting the etching cream isn't really going to do anything because it's not really a paint, if that makes sense.
And then we have a few people asking, is it food safe?
Great question. So while you're using the etching cream, you don't want to have any food around for sure, because like I said, it is not non-toxic. So you want to be careful. But once you remove the etching cream from your glass and you clean it in your dishwasher or you clean it well with soap and water, it is food safe, because like I said, it doesn't leave anything on the surface of your glass. It just changes the texture of your glass, changes it from smooth to cloudy. So if you can see here, a lot of times when we are crafting on wine glasses and things like that, we say don't go near the mouth because you don't want the paint to be near your mouth. But we went straight up to the mouth here because it's just the glass now that's textured. It's not paint on it. It's not etching cream that's on it. It's completely clean. So yes, it is food safe.
Thank you so much, Jessie. I think that's all the questions for right now.
Okay, cool. All right, so I've got my two glasses cleaned. I'm going to put this aside because we're going to start cutting some tape. So I've got a cutting mat here, but you know, sometimes I don't feel like pulling my cutting mat out for little things like this. So I'll just use like the shiny side of a little piece of poster board or even like aluminum foil or something, because you don't need to put a lot of pressure with your knife to cut through the tape. And we're going to be doing kind of small sections at a time. So I'm going to grab a small piece of tape. This is maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches. And I'm just going to lay it down, and I'm going to grab my craft knife, and I'm going to carefully just make it so it's thinner. I'm going to cut this maybe into 3 stripes instead of just the 1 strip of tape. And you can see I'm just doing it by hand. I don't really worry about it being perfect, but if you want yours to be perfect, of course you can use a cork back ruler to help guide your line. Okay, so now you can't really see it on camera, but I've cut my tape, so I have 3 different sizes. I'll get some kind of fun variety in my design when I go to add it to my glass. So I'm gonna do this a few times so I have a few strips of tape to start adding to my glass.
So Jessie, do you know if this formula can be used on the material known as slate? It's like a rock type material.
Yeah, I'm familiar with slate. Actually, no, this really only works on those smooth surfaces. We do have an engraving tool that you can use on glass and slate, and that's like an electronic tool where you can kind of draw and create patterns. But this one only works on, like I said, like glass, and it does work on like the smooth ceramic too, but no, it doesn't work on slate.
And then will there be any residue left from the etching formula if it goes into a dishwasher?
There should not be. So before you put it in the dishwasher, you want to make sure you rinse it very well. So it comes off very easily. You'll rinse it really well, and I'll show you guys kind of how to do that when we get to that part, but you'll rinse it completely before you, just like you would rinse the food off of your, you know, your plates and things like that before you put it in the dishwasher. So no, there shouldn't be any residue. You want to make sure it's all off before you put it in the dishwasher though. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so here I've got a bunch of strips now. I just cut them really quick. I wasn't worried about them being perfect. Just going to kind of spread them out so you guys can all see a little bit better. Okay, so the first pattern I'm going to do is this one here. So I hope you can see, this is one that I used. I have a piece of board here, but it's kind of big. Hopefully it'll help though. Can you, oh yeah, that's way better. So you can see I have those funky stripes. It's kind of like an Art Deco-y look. And this is one of the glasses, or one of the patterns, I should say, that was in the event listing photo. Can you see that good, Emily?
Lindsay, would you mind switching over to the overhead camera so they can see that, please?
Oh, it's overhead on mine.
It is on overhead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I guess I must have my preferences different. So thank you so much.
Can you see now? Okay, cool. So like I said, this is kind of like a funky Art Deco pattern. You can see why I wasn't worried about all the strips being perfect, because we're going to make it kind of irregular, and that adds to that really fun design. So this is the one I'm going to teach you how I did first. So I'm going to grab my glass, I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to kind of tack my tape down, and then I'm going to kind of eyeball it till it's going up straight. It doesn't do perfect. You can always readjust it if you want to. I'm going to do it as straight as I can going up, and I'm going to press it down with my finger. So I have one stripe going all the way up, and then I'm just going to rip off that excess. I'm going to continue doing this all the way around, but I'm going to change the distance between my pieces of tape. So you can make yours perfectly lined up if you want to, but the pattern I did before, it was kind of all different, widths of stripes, which made it kind of funky and fun. So I'm just going to keep adding my little strips that I cut around my glass. And it doesn't need to go all the way to the top, because if you remember when I showed you guys, they don't go all the way to the top on here. We're going to kind of tape them off. So don't worry if it doesn't reach the very top of your glass. We're going to go all the way around.
Now, Jesse, will the etching formula, will it get on your sink or your hardware or anything else that you are working with doing this project?
It shouldn't. So of course, when you go to rinse it in your sink, you want to make sure you don't have any dishes or anything with food on it, but especially that you're about to use. You want to make sure your sink is nice and clean. You just want to make sure you rinse it all the way down the drain and that you don't leave any residue in your sink. And then just give your sink a nice rinse afterwards too, of course, is definitely not going to hurt it. But I can show you too, it really does come off very easily. It comes off, it's not like sticky. It's more of like a gel, I want to say. So it rinses off super, super cleanly.
Now, Jesse, I'm not sure if you're going to be doing any stencils today, but some people are wondering, how would you apply a stencil onto your glass to do this technique?
Great question. I was going to get into that too. I'm glad you said that. So I'm not doing any stencils today because we just are going to learn how to do the tape technique today, but you can absolutely use stencils. So I'll show you here. I have some really fun pieces. I held up this one earlier. Here's one that would be personalized with a adhesive M stencil. So it is important, it must be an adhesive stencil. You can't use a paper stencil or a non-adhesive Mylar stencil. It has to be adhesive. And I recommend the material that's like kind of stretchy, because if it's flexible, it's going to be much easier to apply to a round glass like this. If you're doing something flat like a plate, of course that doesn't matter as much, but for this, you want it to be really flush to your surface. So it's important that it's kind of flexible. But yeah, you guys, Michaels does have adhesive stencils, so you can get so many different, patterns and letters and fonts and things like that at Michaels. But also, like I mentioned earlier, if you guys have an electronic cutting machine at home and you've got some adhesive vinyl, you can just like go crazy. Like just let your imagination run wild. You can make your own stencils with your own names, or like family silhouettes, all kinds of stuff. You can make so many personalized gifts with that. And just like I said, kind of let your imagination run wild. You can absolutely make anything with that.
I love that idea, Jesse. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, no problem. So again, I guess I kind of didn't answer the question. To do an adhesive stencil, you're going to do the same way as this tape. You'll apply your adhesive stencil. You might want to put some tape around it just to make sure, you have lots of room to put your etching cream where it's not going to touch any of the areas you don't want it to touch. And you're going to do the exact same process we do today, where we're going to apply it, let it sit, and then rinse it off. It's going to be the exact same thing as the tape. And again, when we go to apply the cream, I'll give you some tips on that too. I'm just going to cut a couple more strips because I kind of ran out.
Jesse, do you know if this can also work on thermal mugs?
That's a great question. I guess it depends on what it's made of. Like metal, I don't think our etching cream works on metal. If it's like a ceramic mug, like one of those shiny ceramic mugs I've seen a lot, like those like thermoses or like tumblers, that I know it will work on for sure. Okay. All right. So I've got my little stripes going all the way around. You can see how fun that is. So now I'm going to start cutting little chunks of tape that I'm going to stagger to kind of block off the tops to create all of these stripes that are going up. So I'm going to put out another strip of tape. And I'm just going to kind of, very loosely, this doesn't really matter if they're perfect, start cutting little rectangles of tape that we're going to use to kind of finish off the stripes that we have going on here today. So I'll show you what I mean. I got my little rectangle here, so you can see. And I'm going to use this to kind of stagger. I'm going to place it between my stripes. And we got to keep in mind the whole time we're designing our pattern that wherever the tape is going is where it's not going to be etched. So wherever the glass is exposed is going to be etched. You kind of have to like reverse it in your brain. And wherever we have tape, it is going to be that still clear, crystal clear glass. So I want to block that off because I want these to be my stripes in between each of these strips of tape. So I'm going to kind of stagger it because I think that looks kind of fun. I'm gonna kind of, can you see better here? I'm gonna put something in the middle of the glass so you can kind of see my pattern better. I know it's getting kind of busy. There you go. Can you see that better? So you're going to continue to put these little pieces of like tabs of tape to kind of block these off because this is where we're going to apply our etching cream. And those are going to be our funky sort of, like I said, kind of reminds me of like Art Deco stripes. So I'm going to make that one higher, kind of stagger them a little bit. I want them to be kind of wonky and uneven. Do some high, some low, going all the way around my glass. How's everybody doing, Emily? Is anybody crafting along today?
You know what? That's a great question. I'm not sure who all is crafting along with you. I think everybody's just kind of really excited to learn about this technique. There's lots of questions about materials and execution
Awesome.
and cleaning. So I think people are just, wanting to take in all of this information. And then once they know that, they'll be able to go at it. We do have a few people asking about the material list, and Lindsay just posted a link to that. So if you have any questions, there should be a lot of resources there. So yeah, otherwise, we do have somebody working along. They have a flat mirror. So that's really exciting. Yeah. And so they're saying that they like this technique.
Cool. That's another one too. I didn't mention that. You can do it on mirrors too. So you can like etch little designs around mirrors in your home. That's a great idea. Cool. I'm glad. I like to do that too. Oh, go ahead.
We do have people, they're chiming in and saying they're crafting along. One person, I guess, who asked about the stencils is like, I'm using a stencil. So I guess that's where those questions were coming from. But yeah, we have somebody doing a beer mug. So yeah, we've got people crafting, we've got people watching. So it's a good mix.
Very cool. I'm glad you guys are crafting along. Like I was going to say, whenever I'm watching a tutorial or taking a class, especially if it's live, I like to just watch it too and kind of ask the instructor questions and pay attention to what they're doing. And that especially since we offer, Michaels offers a replay for this on their YouTube channel. You can just go back in a couple of days and rewatch it and craft along and pause and rewind as much as you need. And you kind of have all the information you already need to start going. Very cool. I'm glad you guys are crafting along though. That's so fun. It feels like a glass etching party. Okay, so this is it for this one, you guys. So you can see I left this up here bare, but we're just not going to put etching cream on that. We're going to apply all the etching cream to these sections down here that we taped off, and we'll get to that later on. I'm going to kind of do all of my taping at once and then all of my cream applying at once. But that's it for this one. This is going to end up looking like this, so that'll be fun. All right, so now I'm going to move on to my second one. So this is really simple. This is just some fun little stripes here. So I'll grab my handy dandy blackboard so you can see it a little bit better. But this was another one that was in our event listing. So really simple. This would be great for like a wedding gift. You can do this, really elegant pattern on it and then maybe put an initial or a monogram, or do a full set and do a couple monograms and the rest like this. This is just a really classic and simple design to put on a glass. So
I
I'm
love
going to do the
how
same thing.
customizable this is too, Jessie. I feel like there's so many options. I mean, we've got people that are using all these different types of materials and surfaces,
Yeah.
and then you're just taking tape and you're just coming up with this as you go. And it's just whatever you feel. I feel like it's just, if you want to use a stencil, if you want to, you know, do a funky shape, the possibilities are endless.
Yes, I agree. That's why I love this product so much. Emily and I actually, before we started this class, were reminiscing on some of the glass etching projects we've done in the past, just for our personal, you know, crafting lives and for friends and gifts and stuff. It is one of my absolute favorite gifts to give because, you know, if you had a birthday party or something last minute and you're like, gosh, I wish I could have thought something really personal. Wish I could have painted them a painting. I wish I had more time. You can grab a couple of wine glasses or a casserole dish or a lantern and completely customize a gift for them. I was telling Emily I made a casserole dish for one of my girlfriends when she was getting married, and I wrote "Made by Mrs. Riggins" on the bottom so she could bring it to parties and everybody would know she made it with her new last name. I did another one. My mom moved into her new house. I got her a lantern and I etched her new house number on it, and she loved it. She has it sitting on her dining room table still. It's a really, really simple and quick way to personalize a really special gift for someone. That's probably my favorite part about it.
Yeah, I had done it for a Christmas present one year. I thought it was the coolest idea to personalize something for all my family. You know how you can give a gift to every family? And that was just a really easy way for me to do that. And it was surprisingly simple. I like, you know, you get this idea like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? And then you do it and you're like, wow, like I could totally do that again.
It is one of those ones that like starts out seeming a little intimidating, but it really is just that easy to do. Okay, cool guys. So I'm going to show you how I did these really fun stripes. So I just cut a few little strips. I tried to make them as even as I could because I want this one to go all the way around the glass. And I want it to, like I said, look fairly even and clean. So for the top part, I'm just going to tape off this big stripe. And for that, I'm just going to use a regular piece of tape. I'm not going to make it thinner. I'm just going to have just a plain piece of tape off the roll. And I'm going to start maybe 1.5 inches from the top. And this is where it can kind of get tricky. And this is where it's nice to kind of have some tips and maybe practice a little, because of course this tape is not going to want to go straight around the glass. It's going to want to curve. And that's because our glass is curved. So I'll show you a little trick to get it to go straight around the glass. You're not going to worry about the top of the tape touching the glass. We're only going to worry about the bottom of the edge touching the glass. So I've got the glass in my right hand and I've got my tape in the left hand. And I'm going to tilt my glass, placing the tape as I go. And again, I'm ignoring the top part. You can see the top is not stuck to the glass. That is kind of like bumping up. Only the bottom edge is touching the glass. And that's all that matters because that's where we want to mask off for our glass etching. So I'm just holding it still. I'm going all the way around. I think I'm about to run out. You can see if it looks uneven, I'm pulling it back up and I'm tilting my hand again to kind of relay that tape. And I'm only worried about the bottom section. Oh, I came so close. I need to cut off a little bit more for this. I almost made it. All right, I just need a tiny little piece to close that gap. So I'll close that up, make it as neat as I can. I'll try to get those lines as even as I can. So you can see, so all I'm worried about is that bottom edge of tape being super flush. And by flush, I mean like contacting the glass super well. I'm running my fingers so I can make sure it's on there. And then the top is going to be wonky, but we don't care about that because that's all going to be clean glass. We're not going to etch that. That doesn't matter. We just want that clean line on the bottom. Okay. So now, again, you kind of have to reverse it in your mind. That's going to be the clear part. And then the next part is going to be etched. So we need a thin piece of tape to mask off those two little stripes there. So I'm going to grab one of my little pieces that I cut. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this. So I'm gonna go down as far as I want. I'm gonna put the edge down. I'm gonna hold my piece of tape out and you can kind of see on the other side of the glass too, since it's clear, and make sure that it's as level as you can get it. So I'm just holding my tape out. I'm turning my hand. And the good part too about using thinner tape is that since it's thinner, it's almost like more elastic. It's a little stretchier and it allows you to kind of move it and manipulate it a little bit more than the thicker pieces. So this piece, it's almost like stretchy because it's so thin. So you can kind of, like I said, this one you can put down nice and flush. It's not going to bubble up on the edges because it's thinner. Just a little thing you learn.
More forgiving, so where you can get a flat edge on the top and the bottom.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of the nice part about using thinner strips for sure. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to meet up with another piece because we ran out, which is fine. And I'm going to continue doing this all the way around till I meet up on the other side. And if it's not going to meet perfectly, I can pick it up and kind of eyeball it and make sure that it does. So now I can tear off that excess, make sure it's nice and smooth there. And I've got my first stripe. I'll go ahead and do another stripe below that. The same thing, I'm going to tack down the edge and then I'm going to tilt my hand and let that stripe fall evenly under that first stripe we just did. I think I'm going to have to cut a new strip because this one's way too thin and it's going to look funny if you try to put it next to that one. So I'm going to cut a new one kind of a little bit closer to that thickness.
Now, while you're doing that, Jessie, we do have somebody that's curious about kind of freehanding a design with a paintbrush. Would you recommend doing that for this?
That's a great idea. So the thing with that is, I love the idea. It's super creative. The only thing is that could go wrong, and it won't necessarily go wrong. You could do a test first, is that sometimes when you go to rinse it, if you, when you're kind of like rinsing the etching cream off, if it accidentally stays on another area too long, just kind of in the process of rinsing, I should say, it can start to eat the glass a little bit where you don't want it to. So when you rinse it, you kind of need to do it quickly, and you kind of want to have all the areas that you don't want painted masked off because it protects it when you go to remove it too, not just while it's etching through. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying right now is that the tape is also serving as a protective barrier to prevent the etching formula from chemically affecting the glass that you
exactly.
want
That's
done.
exactly what the tape is doing. The tape is masking it off from the areas we don't want etched. So say I were to take a paintbrush and paint a flower on this with my etching cream. When I go to rinse it off in the sink, if it stays on this part a second too long while I'm rinsing, it might etch it just slightly. So again, I would do a little test. If you've got like an old frame or something, you can pull the glass out over like a frame from the dollar store. I think you should try it because I think that could be really pretty. You just want to make sure you rinse it super quick. But I love that idea. That's really creative.
And Jessie, do you happen to know what brand of tape you are using? We've got some people that are curious about it.
Yeah, this is a random one that we have in the studio. It's called Stick, but it's just painter's tape. So if you get like the 3M or Frog tape, it's the exact same thing as that. We just happen to have this in bulk for whatever reason. We got it somewhere. But yeah, I kind of prefer like the 3M or Frog tape that I listed in the supply list anyway. Stencil tape works too. If you have stencil tape at home, I think sounds like some of you might be stencilers, that'll work too, as long as it's nice adhesive tape. All right. Any more questions about taping off before we get into the etching cream? I think everybody's probably excited for that part.
Yeah, no, I think you've answered all the other questions. Somebody did say that they love the idea of doing the freehand because it might give it a nice rustic look. So
yeah,
definitely trying it out.
Yeah, I love it. Okay.
We do have another question, not about taping specifically, but if you leave the etching cream on for a long period, will it eat through the glass? Have you ever had that happen?
That is a great question. That's something I wondered too when I first started doing it, but it's actually kind of funny. So on the bottle, you'll go ahead and make sure you read it too. Whenever you craft with a new substance like this, you want to make sure you read the instructions fully. We are going to leave it on our surface for 15 minutes. And that is really like the minimum you want to leave it on. If you leave it on less, you might not get that nice clean etch you're looking for. But I have found that if you leave it on more, it doesn't change. It etches like to a certain level, and then that's just how much it etches for whatever reason. It doesn't go any deeper. It doesn't go any, cloudier than this. It's kind of like one level. I don't really know why it works that way, but you can leave it on for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and it's going to look the same. So
maybe not an overnighter. We're not, don't do it at night, fall asleep and come back. That might not be the best idea.
I really don't think it'll do anything different though. I really think it'll look the same. Again, I haven't tested it overnight, but I really think that it'll be the same as a 15 minutes for whatever reason.
Good to know. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. I've got my little X-Acto. I'm gonna use that to open up my little packaging here. Just got this from Michael's. Here's a little bottle, and like I said, it looks tiny. but actually goes a really long way. You'll be surprised how many projects you can do with this tiny little etching cream bottle. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open it up, and it's, it has a child-proof safe on the top because it, like I said, you don't want it around your kids. I'm gonna open it up. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put my gloves on because now I'm gonna start using the cream, and I wanna make sure not to get it on my hands while I'm working. So again, if you've got like, rubber gloves under your sink for cleaning, or just, if you've got a pack of these around for crafting and things like that, and you spray paint or whatever kind of crafts you guys like to do, any gloves will work as long as it keeps the etching cream from touching your skin. Okay. So you can see here, it's like, you're probably gonna be surprised at the color. I kind of expected it to be like a white or like clear, but it's actually this like brown color. So it makes it really easy. You know where the etching cream is because it's super brown. It's not like the prettiest look, but once you rinse it off, it will be super pretty. So I'm gonna grab just like an old paintbrush here. I kind of like to have like a paintbrush designated for etching cream. I'll keep it like with my etching cream in my, studio or whatever. And I don't use it for paint after. I'll kind of use like an old beat up like chip brush or something like that I don't really care about. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna dip in here, and you can see, like I said, it's almost like a gel. Like it's very, very thick. So we'll start on this one, and I'm gonna start applying this on to the areas where I want it etched. So can you see that we're adding it, Emily? Okay, cool. So like I said, it is super thick. Okay, cool. It's super thick. So I'm going to kind of, be generous. You want to add a good amount. You don't want to have like a really thin little application of this. You want to kind of glob it on there and make sure you have a nice thick layer on all of the areas that you want etched. Now, you don't have to be super careful. You want to make sure your tape is completely flat against your surface. And of course, I'm going to put this plate here so I don't get it on my table. And of course, you don't want to put it where you don't want it to go. You want to keep it in the areas that you want it to be etched.
That's important. Yes.
Yes. So sometimes, like if I'm doing a little stencil or something and it's tiny, I'll put a lot of stencil tape around it just to kind of like better safe than sorry. So I don't mess it up and get lazy and kind of get it in the wrong area when I go to add the etching cream.
So Jessie, in your experience, how many projects do you think you could do with one bottle?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. You'll see we're not going to use very much of it here today with these 2 wine glasses. But a little secret that isn't on the bottle, but is true from, practice and using this for so long that I learned from my friends here at Plaid. When you go to rinse this off, you can actually reuse it. So when we go to rinse it off, if you kind of scoop off the excess and put it back in the bottle, it will stay active and it will re-etch. So you can just rinse it all down the drain if you want. That's fine too. But you can kind of, like I said, scoop up some of the thicker areas and put it right back in there and keep using the same cream over and over again.
So we're kind of getting a couple questions now that the action's happening.
Cool.
So how quickly, or like when you're applying it, do you have to work fast? So like, if you put it on one area and you're working on a large surface area, how does that work? Like say you want to do it on something big like a mirror, what's the working time like?
Like is the first part going to etch faster than the last part you finish? Great question. So it's kind of what I said earlier. You don't need to worry about it too much because as long as it's on there for at least 15 minutes, it's really not going to etch any more than that. So if your first part is on there for 30 minutes, because that's how long it's taking you to apply your etching cream, and then the last part is only on there for 15 minutes, it's not going to look any different. It's going to be the same amount of etching when you go to rinse it. So don't stress. You don't have to be like super speed applying your etching cream to a big area. You can take your time and it won't affect the outcome.
Another question is just to confirm, you're only putting 1 coat of the etching cream on your project.
Yep. You only need 1 coat of this etching cream when you are etching your glasses. Only 1 coat and that will do it. I will teach you a little trick. Once I'm done applying it, I'll teach you a little trick that I like to do, again, that I learned from my friends here at Plaid. But it's just going to be the 1 coat.
And then as what you're doing right now is you're putting your paintbrush directly into the bottle, but can you pour the etching formula onto, say, a paper plate and use it like that?
Yeah, you probably could. I just kind of like when I'm using something like this that's, a little more toxic than other craft products I use, I just like to keep it contained. I don't really want to get it on anything that I don't have to get it on, if that makes sense. So you could put it on a paper plate and just, dispose of it when you're done. But I like to just keep it in the bottle because then I know I only have etching cream in the bottle and only on my brush. And I know, and I go to clean it up, I don't have to worry about getting it anywhere that I don't want it, if that makes sense.
That's good practice, Jessie. Thank you.
No problem.
Another question is, if you put a different thickness on a certain spot compared to another one, is it going to make it more blotchy, or is it pretty consistent throughout your project?
That's a great question. I have had it where it can get a little bit uneven. So I do want to try to smooth it out and make it kind of just as uniform a layer of etching cream on it as I can. But it really doesn't matter a whole lot. As long as you have about the same amount on all of your areas, you should get a nice smooth etch. So that's that. I'm going to set this aside because I'm done etching him. And I'm just going to go ahead and start doing the second one while you guys are asking your questions.
So someone was asking for a close-up view of the one that you had just finished whenever you have a moment. And then I know that you had mentioned this previously, but somebody's asking about using vinyl from their Cricut, and that you can do that, correct? Definitely.
Any kind of adhesive material you have. So we got to make sure it's like, some vinyls are like kind of stickier than others, are more adhesive than others. It has to be a removable one, of course. You don't want the permanent vinyl,
right.
But you want to make sure it's pretty adhesive, where when you go to apply your etching cream, it's not going to slip under your vinyl. But yes, you can absolutely use adhesive vinyl.
And do you ever have any issues with bubbles?
No, bubbles. I mean, really, it's so thick, it doesn't get bubbles, but I've never had a problem if there were bubbles affecting the etching, outcome. But it's like super thick. It's almost like jelly, like it's super duper. Like I'm trying to think of something that I can compare the texture to. You can kind of see here, like peanut butter even. I don't even know. It doesn't really get bubbles though.
Now, I know that you had shown a glass example with an initial. Somebody was asking about that kind of project, I suppose, with a stencil. So maybe before the class ends, you can show that one again. And then somebody is asking about when you put the tape on the bottom, I suppose the one that you just finished, would you recommend taping the bottom of your glass, or can it go on the bottom of your glass?
That's a really good question. If you're feeling like a little bit, like perfectionist about this project, you could probably tape off that bottom, or you could etch the bottom and just, have it sitting upside down if you want that look. But I'm just kind of going as close to the bottom as I can and kind of freehanding it around to get a clean-ish edge. It's kind of up to you. You can etch the bottom. It's not going to hurt the glass. It just kind of depends on the look you're going for.
Right. And then when you dry it, or the working time, you would flip it upside down.
Right. Of course, you would have it like this while it's doing its thing.
Now, in your experience, have you had any brush strokes after you rinse off?
Nope. No, when you go to see it, I'll show you some of these again when I'm done. It's kind of like magic how smoothly it etches. This is always how we apply it here. We don't do anything fancy to get a more even coat. We don't sponge it or roll it or anything like that. But I'll show you some of these finished projects, how smooth it ends up being when you're done. We always do it just this exact same way. We apply it with a brush, we smooth it out as best we can. And it's really almost perfect every single time.
That's great to know.
Yeah, I know. The first time I did it, I was like, this ain't gonna work. I was like, this is gonna be all lumpy. Like I was applying it like this. I was like, you guys are like pulling my leg. This is never gonna be that clean. And then I rinsed it and I was like, oh my gosh, like it really is absolutely perfect. It's really kind of hard to mess up.
Now, Jessie, are you experiencing any odor from this, or would you consider it odorless?
I would consider this odorless. Sometimes this is just, again, personal experience. I told you how long it lasts for. I have etching cream that's like several years old just because it truly lasts that long. And it can kind of develop an odor over time. But it's not a bad one, and it's not one that you need to protect yourself from, like by wearing a mask or anything like that. It's just something that kind of happens as it ages on your shelf, and it doesn't affect how the etching cream works. I have some etching cream. We have some here in our studio that we've had for so long. Like I said, it goes so far, and it still works just as well as when we opened the bottle.
Now, I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to this question, but does this come in larger sizes? And generally, what's a price point for this? If not, maybe Lindsay can put a link to the Michaels, product, so then people can know what options are available.
Yeah, I believe this is the only size this product comes in. I know for sure it's the only size that Michaels carries.
Okay.
But yeah, you can check out, it's in our supply list too, where to purchase it on michaels.com, and you can check out the price there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jessie.
No problem.
And so far, that's all the questions. And Lindsay just posted that product link. So if anybody would like to know where to get it, now you know.
Awesome. And like I said, Michaels has like some of my favorite glassware too. They have beautiful, they have beautiful wine glasses. I'm pretty sure, like I said, they're Libbey brand. The Ashland vases they have there, like they have hurricane vases in all different shapes. They have some really, really excellent glassware. So they have like lanterns and pretty things like that. So really, Michaels is gonna be a one-stop shop for your glass etching project because they have everything you need. And you're gonna get a really beautiful project with just things from Michaels.
Yeah, just think about how many surfaces that you can do this on. I just think that the options are limitless. You know, you've got Valentine's Day coming up. You could do a Galentine's gift. You could do something for a wedding or a birthday. It's just the possibilities are really endless when it comes to this.
I cannot tell you how many weddings I have brought etched champagne glasses to as a gift. Like, I cannot tell you. And everybody loves it every time because it's personalized. You can do their initials on it. You can do their full name on it. And it is so inexpensive. You can get stuff like that at Michaels. You can get, different glass pieces at the Dollar Tree. It's like super duper cheap, and you keep this etching bottle and you can make so many gifts over time.
So we have a few more questions. One of them is asking, and I know you covered this a little bit earlier about tints, but would you recommend mixing either food coloring, paint, or glitter into the etching cream?
Great question. So really quick before I answer that, I just finished putting my etching cream on. So if you guys are the same step as me, you're going to go ahead and take your gloves off while it etches and set a timer for 15 minutes. That's the minimum amount of time you want to let your etching cream sit on your glass. So I'll set a timer for 15 minutes and then we will go ahead and rinse it off. But yes, I'll answer your question.
Watches.
Yes, exactly. I'll go ahead and answer your question. So the glass etching creams, there are some glass etching paints, I'll say, that stay on the surface of your glass and give you that sort of frosted effect. And it's a paint. Or this one is, it's a chemical where it's actually affecting the surface of your glass. So tinting it is not going to have any effect on the glass whatsoever or any effect on your project because, like I said, it's kind of eating the surface of the glass and changing the glass itself. It's not a paint or some sort of coating that you put on top of it. So adding color isn't going to make a difference. But that was a really great point in the beginning. Someone asked, can you etch on colored glass? Absolutely. You can do glasses at home. You can do vases. Like, colored vases are so in right now. I keep seeing them in catalogs. They're so beautiful, and you can absolutely etch on those for sure.
And then somebody was worried about if the etching cream would get underneath the tape that you applied. But I guess what I would think is that you just want to make sure that you press it down really well prior to applying the product.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, of course it can happen. Hopefully you noticed, I probably should have mentioned as I was doing it, as I was applying the tape. I don't want to touch it now because my etching cream is on it, but I was kind of pressing down the edges as I went. I was making sure they were super flush with my surface, so no air or etching cream or water or whatever would get under that tape when I didn't want it to. So you just want to make sure, use your fingernail, use your finger to just really press that down as you're going to make sure that you get a really crisp line, because it definitely can slip under and then you'll get kind of a wonky line in that area. So just be careful as you're applying your tape and you shouldn't have a problem.
And then would you say that people could add glitter on top of the etching if they wanted to?
Oh, for sure. We love doing that. So I should have brought some projects here. We love to etch on glass and then add paint. So, this one here is really simple. I'll show you again. It's a little like gift jar we made. I just etched the bottom half, but you could go in like stencil on with paint, like an initial over it, or you can paint some flowers around it, or add glitter to it. Like you could add another line of glitter here. You can absolutely add any craft supplies you would use on glass on top of your glass after it's etched.
And you would recommend a multi-surface paint, correct?
For sure. So if you guys have joined our classes before, you probably know we have a paint called FolkArt multi-surface paint, which Michaels has an excellent supply of. So they have tons of colors there. But you can use it on glass, terracotta, canvas, metal, rocks. You can use it on birdhouses, stuff outside. It's dishwasher safe. It works on like really anything. So our FolkArt multi-surface glass is what I would recommend for painting on top of our FolkArt multi-surface paint is what I would recommend for painting on glass.
So while we're waiting, some people are again asking about that monogrammed glass. And then we have another one asking about the bride and groom glasses that you have.
Yeah, I'd love to show you. So I'm going to tell you guys now, I'm not going to rinse it on camera because I don't have a sink here. I'm in the craft studio and we don't have a sink in this room. So when you go to rinse it, you'll of course have your gloves on. I'm going to touch it at the top here. I like to take the brush I used to apply my etching cream, again, after 15 minutes, hold it under the water, wearing your gloves, and use your brush to remove the etching cream and let it go down the drain. Okay, so you're going to use this to kind of like wipe away the etching cream. And then when you are sure you have all the etching cream off, you can go ahead and remove your tape and dry your glass. So I'm going to tell you that you guys now, because we probably won't be doing it on camera. When your 15-minute timer goes off, you're going to go ahead and you're going to rinse that in your sink, and your glasses will look exactly like these that I showed you, or however you taped them. But yes, I would love to show you guys the monogrammed ones. So let me grab my little poster board again. Can we switch to overhead real quick? Probably be easier to see that way. There we go. So here's one we did with, we taped off the top and bottom, and then we used an adhesive M stencil from like an adhesive letter pack. And we made a really cute set of glasses here that would be great for a gift. And then I can show you the bride and groom ones. So here's another one where we used an adhesive stencil, and this is a great idea. If you have an electronic cutting machine at home, you can do someone's name on it. You can do like their new last name. That's a beautiful gift on a set of champagne glasses. But this is the kind of thing you can do if you do have adhesive stencils, which you can purchase at Michaels, or an electronic cutting machine with some adhesive vinyl. Here's the groom one.
So this is a removable adhesive vinyl that you're using for these monogrammed glasses, so that you do the exact same technique as the tape. You are just using it with a couple extra swirls.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a really cute one I did. It's kind of, I kind of crafted it for like New Year's Eve, but I just did some adhesive stencils again with some stars. You could even tape off stars though. You could cut this easily. And it's just really fun. It gives it a little sparkle for a festive occasion, just a little extra something to your home decor. I'll show you this vase too.
Right, it's the exact same techniques with applying the etching cream, correct? When you're using these stencils?
Yep. Exact same technique. You pretend like the adhesive stencil is the tape that we added, and you put the cream where you want it, just right in the center of it, and then you rinse it off after 15 minutes. Here's a vase that my friend Sherry made, where she taped off the bottom with some tape and then used an adhesive stencil to put that P. So this is a really beautiful gift for somebody that is so inexpensive and so easy to make at home. Yeah.
And again, you're using the negative cut vinyl. So whatever is, you can see the glass, that is where you're applying the etching formula. And that is what's going to be etched. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. So if you guys, like I said, if you're used to making stencils at home, if you like to make your own signs, things like that, you'll do it the exact same way. Just make sure it's adhesive, and you'll be doing etching cream instead of paint. Here's another fun one I'll show you really quick. This is one that we did with a little Christmas stencil, which you guys too, if you don't have an electronic cutting machine, or you don't want to go purchase adhesive stencils, there's another little trick too. Here, let me show you sometimes what I'll do. You can kind of make your own adhesive stencils. So you can take, tape. It's better if you have wider tape or thicker tape. But sometimes I'll kind of like make a sheet of tape like this.
And you freestyle it, huh?
You can trace something, or you can freestyle, but you can make your own adhesive stencils this way. So that's kind of how I did the star one that I showed you earlier. I actually kind of hand cut that one because I couldn't find a stencil that I liked. So you can, take a pencil, here, I got one right here, and you could, draw like a Christmas tree on it if you wanted to. You can use paper stencils you have at home and trace those to create adhesive stencils. You could do, somebody's name or a letter and draw it on there. And then you'll take your craft knife And you can go ahead and trace that out. Just follow the line that you just drew with your pencil. Let me do it really quick so I can show you guys how it'll work. You don't have to have a fancy machine to be able to get really cool designs with the etching cream, although it does help. And then you're going to remove the inside. We don't want that. Like Emily said, you're going to be using the negative. Remove the shape. Should have started up here. You make sure you cut it nice and cleanly. I kind of rushed it. You're going to remove the shape. Oops. And then the outside area is what you'll carefully lift off of your cutting mat or wherever it is that you're cutting it. And you'll apply that to the glass and you basically have an adhesive stencil. So what I would do is I'd probably add some more tape here to kind of like keep the structure intact so I don't pull the layers up. Yeah. So it kind of holds the whole thing together, but then I can just cut around it and we can pull that up and we'll have a nice adhesive stencil that we made ourselves with just tape. It's so easy. Make sure I pull it up and you know, be careful for sure. But now I have a Christmas tree stencil. Super duper easy to do. And you can apply this to a glass and etch it just the exact same way that I just showed you how to do the etching with the tape stripes.
So just to recap, can you walk people through the process of washing off the etching tape again? Just simply because we're not gonna, you don't have a sink. So can you just walk through it one more time? Because we've got people that just need a little bit more explaining, and I know that would be super helpful.
I'd be happy to. You might put gloves on so I can show you how I would really do it. It may even have been 15 minutes by now. I didn't really set a timer because I knew
I didn't either. I didn't synchronize my watch, so
that's okay. Now we remember for next time. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this to your sink carefully. You don't want to touch it, right? You're gonna lift it. You're gonna put your hand inside it. You're gonna put it under your running water, right? In an empty sink. You don't want to have your dishes and things under it because it could etch those too. Honestly, make sure your sink is empty. And then as the water's streaming over it, you're going to use this. I'm gonna even show you how I do it. And of course, the water is going to help. And it's going to start removing that from your etching cream. You can kind of scrub it off too. Like when the water is hitting it, this will start coming off. It'll start rinsing down your drain. Just kind of scrub it off as you go. And then rinse the entire thing off. So there's no more. It doesn't matter if it's hot or cold water, just as long as it's running water. You're going to rinse it off. And then once it is all rinsed off, you'll pull off your tape and it will look just like the ones that I showed you. You'll have these nice clean lines where we added our tape. It's really that simple. Just again, make sure you don't get it on your hands. That's really the only rule to it. Make sure that, you know, the tape stays down as you're rinsing, but it'll be perfect.
And so some people are remembering your tip about saving the cream.
Yes.
So I guess theoretically you could try to remove some of the cream before you go to your sink. Is that correct?
I wish I could show you inside this bottle, but like I hardly use any, like I can't even see a difference when I open it. But yes, you absolutely could. So you could try to lift some of it off. Do you see how it's coming off on it's coming up on my brush? And you can put it back in your bottle. If you're frugal and you like to save stuff, which I don't blame you one bit, you can remove some of the excess first. You don't feel like get it all off because you really need the water to get that clean rinse. But where there's, you know, thicker areas, you can use your brush and start removing it that way and put it back into your etching cream bottle before you take it over to your sink.
And then again, you're just using an old brush that is only for this product now. Like you've just taken a used brush, it doesn't matter what kind, and you just designated to this kind of craft.
Yep, exactly. So I'll rinse this off with my glasses. I'll rinse it really well, and I'll keep it with my etching cream in my studio. So this is kind of like my etching cream brush now. I just won't use it just in case I didn't get all of the bristles. You just better safe than sorry. This is now my designated etching brush for sure.
And will this damage your sink at all? Like whenever you're putting it down the drain, like what is your experience with that?
That's a great question. It should not damage your sink. We here at the Plaid Studio, this building is like at least a decade old, a couple of decades old. And we've been, you know, washing our etching cream down this sink, making all kinds of projects, and we've never had a problem. So I can only speak to my experience, but it should not have any negative effect on your sink.
And then again, just to reiterate that once you rinse the formula off, it's a permanent it permanently changes the glass. So it's not going to come off. Your etching is etched.
Right. You are changing the surface of the glass permanently, like Emily said. It's not a paint, it's not a coating. The glass is been eaten away by the chemicals and it is not coming back. That is how the glass will be forever. Awesome. All right, guys, any more questions, Emily? We're coming up on our hour.
No, I think that we've, if people need to hear your answers again, I know that you've covered a lot of this material. So yeah, just if you have any more questions, I promise you that all of these have already been answered. Jessie, thank you so much for doing this. And Lindsay, it was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, so much. So just to remind you, we are here a couple times a week in the Michaels Community Classroom. So every Monday night, we have our Paint Night Live, where we teach you to paint a full painting in just about an hour. So we have lots of artists. I teach those classes, Chris Williams, Andy Jones, Kirsten Jones. We have tons of really fun artists with different styles to show you how to paint paintings on Monday nights. And that is at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we'd love to see you there. But we also have tons of craft classes throughout the week. So we do things like etching, we use our craft paint, we Mod Podge, we do so many different fun things. So make sure to keep an eye out for plaid classes on the Michaels Community Classroom calendar. And we'll see you next time. Bye guys.